Of the many teams the Lakers have been linked to for a trade, only about 3 to 5 of them at most are realistic, and both have a player they would want or should want, and are a team they can make a trade with. Now, I know many of you don't care about the CBA, aka Collective Bargaining Agreement, but it really dictates which teams you can make a trade with and how easily that trade will be to make. For example, the Lakers are a first apron team, therefore they can't take back money through a trade, cannot combine minimum contracts through a trade, and then if you're a second apron team, it only becomes more difficult. Not only can you not take back money through a trade, but then you can't combine players of any contract through a trade as well. Again, really making it difficult to make a trade. And with that in mind here, the Lakers are fairly limited to the teams they can make a trade with. But before we get too far into it, don't forget to check out g2a.com for the best deals in your favorite games, credits, and everything digital entertainment. You can check them out in the video description down below. But now getting back to our topic. Now we have to think about a team like the Utah Jazz with Walker Kessler, or a team like the Brooklyn Nets with Dorian Finney-Smith who they traded for, or a guy like Cam Johnson who they have been linked to, but how about a team like the Charlotte Hornets? Why might they be a good team to trade with, and who do they have to offer? We'll talk about that and break it all down. Well, for one, they're not a first apron team or a second apron team. I mean, for example, even a rebuilding team like the Washington Wizards do happen to be a first apron team. Any team that used their non-taxpayer mid-level exception, like they did, automatically became a first apron team regardless of their payroll. And with that in mind here, it would be very tough for the Lakers to make a trade with them, as neither they nor the Wizards can take back money through a trade, therefore requiring them to involve a third or fourth team to make that trade. And we're simply talking about a guy like Valanciunas, who in my opinion is not a good fit to begin with. But unlike them, the Charlotte Hornets do not have that problem. They are neither a first nor a second apron team, and according to reports, are very willing to make a trade where they take back a bad contract in return for draft compensation. And with that in mind here, they're already a pretty good trade target, whether it's a direct trade target for a 1-for-1 trade, or involving them as that third or fourth team in a bigger trade. But even as a direct trade target, I think they have some good players to offer or simply to negotiate with, and it kind of begins with Nick Richards. That's the primary guy the Lakers have been linked to on their team, and for good reason too. According to both Brett Siegel of Clutch Points and Evan Sidery of Forbes, they have had interest in him and apparently dating all the way back to this offseason, which definitely does mean they would like to have him, have had trade talks about him, and likely are routinely checking in on him too. And while it does happen to be for a good reason, no, he might not be a Walker Kessler or a guy like Nick Claxton, but if we're talking about a good price and for a fairly good backup center, then he definitely wouldn't be a bad idea to trade for. Right now averaging about 9.2 points per game, nearly 8 rebounds per game, 1.3 blocks per game, shooting 56.4% from the field, and all around being a reliable backup big man, he definitely could fill a need for their team and would be an upgrade for their team as well. Another thing to like about him happens to be the contract that would come with him. Only making $5 million this season, and that would be fairly easy for them to trade for. Simply trade away a guy like Jalen Hood-Schifino with Christian Wood, or any other minimum contract for that fact, and they could match the contract of Nick Richards. Or instead they could trade a guy like Gabe Vincent, and then trade for both Nick Richards and another guy with him, giving them a variety of options and not only addressing their need for a backup center, but then maybe a different player with him too. And that's one of my favorite parts about trading with the Charlotte Hornets. For one, again, they can take back money through a trade. That's the issue for a lot of teams, and not for the Charlotte Hornets. They could take back money, the Lakers won't have to worry about that. Again, they literally can't take back money, so that's gotta be priority number one. Then on top of that, they have a good collection of valuable backups and good role players in general that are worth trading for. No, maybe not the top end talent, not a guy like Walker Kessler at center, or a guy like Cam Johnson at small forward or power forward, but again, a good collection of valuable backups. I like Nick Richards. I think he would be a good upgrade for their team, would fill a need for their team, and would be worth trading for. But then with him, a different guy like Cody Martin, for example, could be a good valuable backup wing for them, a good 3-and-D wing at times, maybe not all the time, but would be an upgrade over Cam Reddish in my opinion. Simply from a health and durability standpoint, has stayed healthier this season, is probably a better defender, and kind of about the same level of 3-point shooter, so that could be an option for them. Could combine him in a trade with Nick Richards, trade a guy like Gabe Vincent and Jackson Hayes together, and they could pull that trade off. Or a guy like Josh Green, for example, a bit younger than Cody Martin, a better 3-point shooter, maybe not as good on defense, but a different option here nonetheless, and one that I would have slight interest in. Unlike Cody Martin, is a reliable 3-point shooter, currently about 40% from the 3-point line, with solid defense, albeit unspectacular. Not a great defender like Cody Martin, but kind of does fill that 3-and-D role a bit better, being a very good 3-point shooter, with average to above average defense when he locks in. Kind of a sporadic player, but a fun player as well. Good in the open court, can be exciting in the open court, but can make some boneheaded decisions out there too. Regardless though, the point here is that they have a good collection of guys we're trading for, primarily being Nick Richards, Cody Martin, and Josh Green in my opinion, all of which will fill a need for their team, especially being Nick Richards, being that backup center, an upgrade for them at backup center compared to Jackson Hayes or Christian Wood, or at least not when healthy or playing well, and overall will be a good fit for their team. Then with Cody Martin and Josh Green, good 3-and-D options to their team, could give them more stability at the backup wing spot, primarily over a guy like Cam Reddish that simply can't stay healthy. No, not over Max Christie or Dorian Finney-Smith, but probably over Cam Reddish, definitely from a health standpoint, and then probably Jared Vanderbilt from a health standpoint too. More durability and therefore reliability, which they definitely could use more of. And then finally, the fact that they're willing to make a trade, take back money through a trade, and probably take back a bad contract as well, which Lakers might have a few of depending on who you're talking about. Some people view Gabe Vincent as a bad contract yet, is currently under contract for one more year after this one, worth about $11 million that season, and despite having a pretty good past month, probably is still viewed as a neutral asset, maybe a slight negative asset, and that's a guy that not many teams would want, not really the player but more so the contract, other than a team like the Hornets who would take that contract, primarily for a second round draft pick or two with it. Or even talking about a guy like Jared Vanderbilt, I don't think they should or will trade him, but that contract definitely isn't looking good right now, and if for whatever reason they feel the need to desperately trade him, maybe he would get hurt again or whatever it might be, one of their only options to trade him to might be a team like the Charlotte Hornets. Again, not saying they should do that, but that's the option trading with Charlotte could give them. And no matter what way you look at it, I think they would be a good trade target and a good trade option for the Lakers to trade with. Again, between the options they have to trade, a guy like Nick Richards, for example, who I really like, might not be the top end option again, isn't Walker Kessler, Nick Claxton, or whatever your favorite center trade option might be, but is a good option nonetheless, and that would be hard to argue against. Whether it be defense, is a net positive on defense, albeit not a great defender, is a solid rim protector, a good athlete around the rim, and would be an upgrade compared to Jackson Hayes or Christian Wood in that regard. Then offensively, isn't a 3-point shooter but is a great lob threat, a good rim runner, good offensive rebounder, and a good dump-off guy around the rim. Once again, being an upgrade in many different aspects. And then the simple fact that they could maybe address not only one, but two different needs here at the same time and with the same team, that would make trading with them very valuable in my opinion. One of which again being a backup center with Nick Richards, and then the other one being at the wing spot, kind of a 3-and-D wing option with either Cody Martin or Josh Green. And well, all of that put together makes them a very good team to trade with. Again, having good options to trade for on their team, Nick Richards, Cody Martin, and Josh Green are willing to take back money through a trade and can take back money through a trade, and then are simply willing to negotiate with them through a trade. And if you ask me, that makes them a good trade target and a team that should definitely be on their list to trade with. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about a trade with the Charlotte Hornets and targeting a guy on their team like Nick Richards? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.